Let's go ahead and add the functions that will calculate the bill split. Back to our code. At the bottom, let's go still inside of our class. Okay, I'm going to add a first function here. I'm going to say calculate. Put it at the top there. Calculate total per person. Now, what we are going to be passing here is going to be a double of total tip and double bill amount and int split by. Okay, that's what we're going to be passing there. Before we even work on our calculate total per person, we need to calculate the total tip. So I'm going to say calculate total tip like this, double bill, this bill amount to be consistent, and split by, and the tip percentage. The formula is fairly simple. What are we doing really? First of all, I'm going to create a double total tip variable here, 0.0, because I'm going to be using that. And I'm going to say if, first, just to make sure we are secure, if bill amount that we're receiving is less than 0, or bill amount is empty. If that's true, also or bill amount for some reason is null. In this case here, we probably don't need this bill amount is null because Dart tends to take care of null values for us. I'll just leave it as it is so you have it. So here we can maybe display something to the user and let them know what's going on. So whatever you want to do, you can do here. Else, that means everything is good. This is where we do the calculations. Well, the calculations are very simple. Like I said, I'm going to say total tip is going to be equal to, first of all, I'm going to say the bill amount, multiply that by tip percentage, and just divide all of that by 100 so we can actually get the value that we're looking for. That's all to get a tip, right? And to finalize, we're going to return total tip. Now, to calculate the total per person, once we have total tip, it's easier as well. So I'm going to say var total per person. I'm going to set that to the total tip that we're going to be receiving. And I'm just going to add the total bill. Now, there's different ways for you to do this, making it simpler for all of us. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to add the total tip to the bill amount, and then we will know exactly how much each person will have to pay. And if I want to be thorough, I can just go ahead and divide this by the how many people we are talking about, right? So I can go ahead and say divide by split by. So I'm going to return total per person like this. Now the calculate total tip, it's going to be, we're going to be calling it where? Well, it's going to be, we're going to be calling this where we have our tip, because we want to make sure that this number here changes accordingly as we slide left and right. So where it says 34 here, I'm just going to go ahead and call our function. So I'm going to say calculate total tip, and I'm going to pass all of the variables. So for our calculate total, we have bill amount. I'm going to invoke the bill amount, which we created at the top. Notice we have underscore here because it's private, and this is the bill that is actually going to be used. Okay, and let's give that a new line. Split amount is just the person, remember, person counter, and tip percentage is tip percentage, like that. Okay, it's very important you put the underscore because these are private. These are the values. We'll have the current state. That's very important. Now, if you save this, come down here, things are changing. Let's make this a little bit different. You can see our tip is changing. There's something that is not quite right. So let's go back here and perhaps let's say calculate tip. Let's go back to calculate tip total. Right. I'm adding, this should be multiplying. There we go. That's the problem. Okay, now save. This is much better. If you have 100 bill amount here, notice the split doesn't work yet. But in this case here, if you're paying 100 and the tip is 40%, and of course the tip you want is 40%, it's going to be 40% of 100 is 40. So if I go 20, it's going to be 20, and the 10 is going to be 10. Makes sense. Okay. This is the other way for you to make sure that things are actually working if you put a number that you know. 10% of 100 is $10. Makes sense. Very good. So now it is working perfectly. Next, we want to make sure that the split also works, because if we are at the 10% and we have this amount, if we add one more person, we need to divide whatever amount we have. So 100 plus 110, 100 plus 10 is 110, and divide that by 2 and get to 105, I believe. Okay, that's what we're going to do. To do that, we already have the calculate total per person, which does all the calculations for us. So we just have to call this, it's going to be here, total per person, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pass total tip. To simplify here, instead of passing total tip, we don't need to do that, because we're just going to call this function calculate total tip right here to simplify our lives. I'm going to just get rid of all of this. Calculate total tip like this. And we're going to pass bill amount, split by, and tip percentage. I'm going to say int tip percentage. This all is good. So let's call total person. Go back at the top here. So bill amount, pass the bill amount. Person and tip percentage, like that. Let's save this, and you can see now if we go to 20, $60. So 100 plus 20, that's 120, divided by 2 people, that's going to be $60 per person. Okay, it's now working. So the more people we add, of course, the less each person has to pay. All right, let's see if we say about 40%. Now, notice we have a problem here, which is the bottom overflowed by 15 pixels. And this is a problem that we can solve real quick. One of the ways to do this is we need to make sure that we only have 2 decimal points. To do that, very simply, I can come down here and say let's see, we have our calculate here. Actually, let's go to our calculate function there. What I can do here is I can say dot to string as fixed like this and pass 2. And there we go. So this is how you do it to just have 2 decimal points. So if you put 3, obviously we're going to have 3 decimal points. Save this. Notice there we go, 21.67. So $21.67. That's way better. And the more people you add, notice now we have solved that problem. Okay. And if it's just one person, $100, and at 50% for tipping, that's $50. So 100 plus 50, that's $150. You have to put $150 for the bill. Very good. And just like that, folks, we have our application working perfectly. Okay, so we can change, and everything is dynamic, as you can see. As soon as we start moving our slide, our total per person changes, as well as we change the split by adding more people, and you can see everything looks good. So if we can put a bigger number, and you can see, wow, that's a big bill. We can keep going, and I don't know how many people you're going to be feeding with over $100,000, but you never know. Very good, very good. Now we can do the same thing here, because you notice our tip, we still have 1 decimal point, and it doesn't look good for currency. Let's give 2 decimal points just like we did at the top here. So very simple, you should know by now. I'm just going to copy this and go to percentage. I can just go here and paste it all in. All right, like this. Let's see, save. Right, we have issues because of the double. Let's see, let's change somewhere else, obviously. Let's say calculate total tip right about here. I'm going to put everything inside of a parenthesis and close everything. And say paste it all in like this. Save. We should see now everything is looking much, much better. So 2 decimal points. It's still taking the last value, but it wasn't showing there. There we go. 40, 20, there we go. Let's say just 2 people. Okay, maybe 1,000 just to make sure for good measure. And voila. Still working perfectly. Very good. So congratulations if you got to this point. So I hope you were able to learn a little bit more by going through this process of creating this calculator, tip calculator. This is the basis for something else perhaps that you want to build. In fact, I encourage you to go and find other kinds of calculators that you can implement. This is very easy, and you know enough now to be very, very dangerous to be able to create pretty much any calculator you want. You have all the user interface chops, you know how to add the colors, you now know to do all sort of things. So instead of being a spectator, I would rather you I'd rather you be more of an action taker, and this is how you actually learn, right? We're doing all these things so that we can actually build something. So go ahead and do that. And congratulations if you got to this point. If you build upon this calculator, I would love to hear and see what you do so I can perhaps feature your work so others can congratulate you as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next time.